Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from CRT Designs, and today I have these fun rainbow coffee cards to share with you. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to use A2 bases, and I've already made those. And then I brought in my Deckled edge trimmer, and I'm going to trim out the mat that I'm going to place underneath my panel, because you guys know I love a good mat. And this is that black shimmery cardstock I really love to use. And I'm just cutting it down to be about 1/4 of an inch smaller than my A2 base. I generally do 1/8 of an inch, but with this one I just wanted a bit more of a border. So here you can see that I'm kind of holding it up to make sure that I like the border on it. And I did that twice because we are making 2 cards. And then I also have 2 pieces of the Distress Watercolor cardstock. And you can see that I'm kind of moving it along the trimmer just because the decal changes based on where you're cutting on the trimmer. So the higher you up, the subtler the decal is, and the lower you are on the trimmer, the more prominent the decal is. So this kind of just gives you a little more texture. And I cut that down to be 1/4 of an inch smaller than my mat. So then I brought in the Tim Holtz Fresh Brewed Blueprint stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp it out twice on the distress cardstock. I've lined it up in my Misti, and I have that new media grip holding my cardstock down, and I just really wanted to try this. These cards are actually pretty much an experiment. I went into this having no clue what I was really making, other than I wanted to use some stamp sets that I'd had for a little bit and hadn't used, this being one of them. So I kind of had no idea what I was doing. I brought in a bunch of fun Tim Holtz products that I have and was just kind of playing around with an idea. So I stamped out the one kind of Frappuccino-esque image, and then this one's a coffee cup. Now, I personally don't actually drink coffee, so this is kind of funny, but my husband and my parents and a bunch of my friends, they all love coffee. So I just thought that this card was super fitting, so both of them. So I end up stamping out the 2 images in Archival ink. This, for the images, it's ground espresso. See, I can't even say it. And then for the letters, I'm going to use black soot. So I'm also going to stamp out True Love, which again is kind of funny in the sense that I don't drink coffee, but I know how much my husband loves coffee, so I thought that this was pretty fitting. And the stamp set for this is actually the Tim Holtz Worn Text stamp set. And I stamped it out 3 times because the Distress watercolor cardstock is so textured, because it's a cold press watercolor cardstock. Because it's so textured, it does take a minute to get a good impression. And that's why I kind of use 2 different shades. Like the coffee is not necessarily the focal. None of it's really a focal until we get to the color. And here you can see my supervisor showed up. And I left this in just because I wanted you guys to see, like, I'm lifting my Misti here. And the card has not moved at all. Like, the lid is not touching it because I wasn't ready to put the stamps down. I was lining them up to make sure I liked where they were, because as you can see, I've already stamped one of the cards. And then my supervisor showed up, so I kind of had to do it on an angle here. And then you're going to see me actually kind of have the cardstock sit on an angle, and it didn't move. This media grip is pretty amazing. So for mine, I actually cut it out to fit the Misti perfectly, and then I set it on a piece of acetate so that it wouldn't move, because of course it won't stick to the paper that comes in the Misti, but it will stick to acetate. So I just have a thick sheet of acetate holding it there, and that kind of gives me that room that it's not really going to move. So I thought this was a really neat idea. I'll have to play with this more. This is the first time I've tried it. I just took it to my 12x12 trimmer and cut it down to the dimensions of my Misti, but this is really interesting. So I did have to take the foam pad out of the Misti because, of course, these are red rubber stamps. And then I brought in the Tim Holtz Brushstrokes stamp set, which is what you see me here using. And I'm going to do 2 sets of colors, which you would have seen from the picture. These are probably my favorite rainbow colors from the Oxide inks, because if you guys have been with me for a minute, you know that I really gravitate to vibrant colors. That is kind of my color palette, my preference. So that is kind of what I was thinking here. So I really wanted kind of a subtle, it's subtle in that it doesn't pull your eye. Like, yes, the sentiment is black, but once you throw this splash of color over top of it, what catches your eye is the colors. And that's what I was going for. So I think that really turned out well, and I think it's stunning. So for the first blend, I did use picked raspberry into carved pumpkin into squeezed lemonade. And you can see I'm using finger daubers. You could absolutely use the ink pad and take it to the ink. I didn't. I found this a little easier for me. And then I mist it with a little bit of water, and I'm going to stamp it down. And you're going to get this really cool kind of watercolored brush stroke effect. And I thought that it turned out really neat. And then we're going to jump into my second set of colors, which in this set was Wilted Violet into Mermaid Lagoon into Cracked Pistachio, which is a darker color set. I mean, I could have picked slightly different colors for this, I think, but I still think it turned out stunning. These are my favorite colors for a rainbow in the Distress line, so I do end up gravitating to them a lot. And I do use the finger daubers to kind of make the colors go into each other a bit in the blend. Now, it was a little bit easier in the last set of colors just because they seem to play better for me. But either way, I think they both turned out really pretty. The only difference I did find with this blend is it didn't end up moving as much as the first one did when I add the water. So you're going to see that. We're going to stamp this one twice, and I do end up adding a little bit of extra water to try to get a little more movement. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the cardstock or I didn't have enough water, it didn't move quite as much. So you see I missed it twice, and I gave a light misting to my cardstock and I stamped it down again. I don't get the same movement as I got the first one, but honestly, I think that it's cool. It's just a different look. So I'm happy with it, but you could of course add more water and get more movement from it if that's what you wanted, to have it more similar to the first one. I'm happy with these. I had no idea what I was making, and this is what I came up with. So I'm really happy with how they turned out, but by all means, you could of course tailor this to be more your color palette. And these cards would be super easy to mass produce if you wanted to. These didn't take me very long because we did it all in kind of segments, right? So if you really wanted to mass produce these, you absolutely could. And as per usual, I am going to use my Misti to weigh down my cardstock so that it lays flat, just because there was a little bit of bowing from where I added the water onto the cardstock. It was very minimal, but I don't like my cards to bow. So I do like to weigh them down with my Misti because it sits on my desk. And I just find it the easiest way to do that. And I am going to use my Nuvo Deluxe glue to add my layers together. Again, just my preferred liquid glue. I prefer liquid glue because it gives me a second to kind of move the base or panel around until I'm happy with where everything's sitting. And as you guys know, I like to eyeball everything. That's just kind of how I roll. And because I cannot leave anything alone and I have to add shiny things to everything, I brought in the Studio Katia Cafe au Lait pearls. I thought that really helped pull the brown ink from the actual coffee image. So I think that just kind of was a fun play on it. And I haven't used these pearls. So I was really trying to use things in my stash that I haven't used yet, but have kind of been sitting there, which is sad because they're beautiful products. So I had a lot of fun with these cards. I would love to know what you guys think of these. Would you try this? Is this something you might give a go if you have a stamp set similar, or these stamp sets in particular? And what did you think? Or what colors would you use if you did it? Instead of doing it maybe rainbow, would you do it more monochrome? Or what would you do if this was your card? I'd love to know. Thank you so much, guys, for stopping by. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday. Please leave me a like, leave me a comment, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye-bye for now.